Rochester work, so welcome. We hope you have a great day here at the Career Conference, and we think you made a good choice in being able to start your day here with a great panel of employers that we have. They're going to share their thoughts with you about what their expectations would be as they look for quality candidates that can help make their companies more viable and more successful. And as I said, we've got probably 64 companies upstairs that would love to talk to you, including all of these women and their companies, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce them for a minute so you understand who they are and where they come from. Right here I have April Griffin. She's from Excellus Blue Cross Blue Shield. I've got Kelly McClure from Heritage Christian Services, Jean Sheehan from Conserve, and I also have Marcy Zizas from Verizon Wireless. All right. I hope you have some questions for them, but just to kind of prep us a little bit, you know, Annie, we're always going to have a little stuff in my pocket. So I thought what I would do is just throw this question out to them and let them take turns in answering the question. And then, as I said, I have some more, but if you have questions, just raise your hand. I'm going to come to you and ask your question of them. So please feel free to take this opportunity to ask them the questions that you always wanted to ask employers about as you're going through this search for new opportunities. So again, thank you so much for giving your time and your talent and your experience with us and with our clients. Can you tell me what are the top qualities that you look for in a prospective employee? Anybody can go first.
When we look for candidates, we're looking for someone who's motivated and takes initiative, a genuine interest in the job, someone who we feel is enthusiastic about the job, and someone who's going to be reliable and be a good corporate citizen.
I guess I'll piggyback that. Not sure if this is on.
I would probably just leave them on once they're on.
Okay. Can you hear me? No, it's not on.
Yeah, it is.
It is on. Okay. It is on. Some of the things that we really look for are those soft skills. So those things that aren't really measurable on a resume, especially because a lot of the work that we do at Heritage Christian Services is relational. It's working with people. So you really have to have the ability to connect with people, have strong, no matter where you're working within our company, if you're working in an office setting or if you're working one-on-one with the individuals we support, you do have to have the ability to build relationships and be personable and have those skills like being dependable and responsible. So those soft skills are really important, especially in your interview, to shine through.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I agree with everything they said, and on top of that, a couple of things that we look for, you know, even before we meet somebody, is we look for the fact that somebody actually took the time to complete their application. Some of the questions may not seem relevant to you, but we need that information to get a full picture evaluation. Another thing is making sure that you meet the minimum qualifications of a job. There are a lot of candidates out there, and we put those qualifications there for a reason, just to make sure somebody minimally meets what we're looking for. So I think those are some key aspects, as well as maintaining professional contact. It's great to reach out and follow up, but there's a point when you have to realize there's 10,000 other people that are doing the same thing. So we do our best to get back to everybody at a time frame, but following up on a daily basis doesn't necessarily help us get through all those applications.
And I would agree with everything they all said. One of the biggest things that when we're looking for applications and looking for people, we're looking for very diverse environments. So we're looking for all types of people, all different generations. We're looking for people who are going to be creative. When they come into the interview, they're going to reach out and let us know who they are and what they're looking for in a career. So something that Verizon Wireless does is you may start in a call center environment, but the sky's the limit. You can move very quickly in our company. So very motivated people who are willing to keep driving and going forward, that's what we look for every day when we're looking at applicants.
Thank you. I think what you've heard is that a couple of things. I think they want you to be prepared. I think they want you to come to them and help them to understand why you're coming there. And also, what I heard from all four women was be aware of what that particular organization is looking for. Okay, what is it that their culture is like? What's their vision like? what type of work do they do, and how can your skills, both your technical skills and your soft skills, of what importance and what value do they place upon that so that you align well? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. I did have a little follow-up question too, April, and it's to you, so
Okay.
answer back and tell me. And I know when you said follow-up, I saw some heads poke up, so maybe you could speak a little bit to that, all four of you, but also, what is your thoughts on that?
I think it's great to follow up. I think too that some of the old school things like thank you notes after an interview have gone to the wayside, but they make a big difference and they really do stand out now when candidates send them. It shows that you do have a sincere interest still in the position. And I think it's okay, LinkedIn is a large tool that we use, so if you're interested in a job, I encourage you to follow, link with me on LinkedIn and let me see kind of that you're interested in the position. So I think follow-up is okay as long as it's done professionally and in a conservative manner.
Okay, great. Did you have another thought too?
I did, and I can't remember what it was.
If you remember, feel free to jump in. Okay. But for the rest of you, do you want to get some feedback a little bit on follow-up in your arena? Particularly, which I was impressed with, was the fact of link up on LinkedIn. So everybody's a little different. So how do you guys feel about that? And how does follow-up work for you?
For us, we really do like the follow-up. We have a tendency after a pre-screen interview, so if you've made it through the filling out the application to its fullest and we reach out to you, what we do is we send you what we're looking for. We send you exactly what the pay may look like, the benefits, what options we have, and then we like to hear back from the candidates, maybe asking a follow-up question, or if they didn't understand something that we had sent them, we encourage that so we can actually share that before you get to another step in the interview and maybe are disappointed or it's not something you're looking for. So that way we're able to be on the same page. So for us, we like the follow-up.
So for us, definitely follow-up is important. However, we always will tell you what our next step is going to be. So if you fill out an application, then you should be getting a response for that application within 5 to 7 business days. If you don't, then you could absolutely give us a call. But then after that, we would have a phone screen with you. After your phone screen, we would tell you when we would be following up. And if you didn't hear from us within that time frame, then you could give us a call. As April had mentioned before, we do get a lot of applications, so it is difficult sometimes to get back to everyone, but we do our best to do that. So that's why we always tell you where we are in the hiring process, so that you can know. And then if you don't hear back from us within the time frame that we give you, then feel free to give us a call. But that's just a general rule of thumb too. If any employer or recruiter tells you that they're going to get back to you within a certain amount of time, give them that time. And if it's beyond that time, then give them a call.
And I would definitely agree with most everything that's been said here. I think for us, follow-up is important as well. Again, respectful follow-up. And we also try to give you a time frame. If we don't follow up, if I don't give you that call I was supposed to give you this week, absolutely call me. Absolutely. Most likely it's just because I'm busy and doing something else, but the fact that you're calling shows me you are interested. In addition to that, certain jobs, follow-up is very relevant. If it's a sales position or in our call center where you're making outbound calls to people who've defaulted on student loans, that assertiveness is important. So it does, and then even for other jobs, administrative assistants and customer service reps or what have you, it never hurts to follow up as long as it's, on a respectful basis.
Great. Any questions from you around what we've talked about so far as follow-up to anyone?
Well, is there any particular way to like the follow-up through an email or a card or a phone call? Is there any particular?
I know personally, I think email is one of the better ways for me just because I am so busy and not always at my desk. So email is something that I can do, while I'm doing other things, multitask. And sometimes it's harder to reach me on the phone than it is via email.
Same for me. I prefer email. Or if you've interviewed, I think a thank you note or a thank you email or a message through LinkedIn. Any of those are great as well. Phones it's just tough to call. Sometimes it's 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock. You don't want to call someone that late. So.
Anything different for the two of you?
Email.
Good? Email?
Mm-hmm.
The same, yes.
Okay. So you've learned how to follow up. Okay. And I think, what I'm hearing here is a little bit probably different venue than what I hear when I do workshops with you. Your perception of, gee, I can't follow up, it's a little bit different. You're hearing from 4 people in distinctly different ways, but the same thing. Yeah, please follow up with me. Be respectful, but I'm looking for that. And if you're in sales or you're in a certain job, that's a trait that I'm looking for, so I'm really waiting to see if you are really going to do that. Okay? Sure.
Before an interview stage, often you don't have a direct email. So if you have a name, or how would you suggest we follow up sort of before we know we've become a candidate of choice? And like, would a receptionist give out your email if we asked?
I guess I can start with that. We're all very open at Excelis to having our emails out there. All of our postings tell you who the recruiter is for the position. We use, like I said, LinkedIn quite a bit. So LinkedIn is a great tool because you can send a message without even being linked and say, I applied for this position, I'm interested. We also have our main number and website, which you can call based on that, and it'll go to our coordinator who will try and get you to the right person for the position. But I encourage, I think somebody said it already, give us some time. Recognize if you apply on the first day of the posting versus someone who applies on the last day of the posting, there could be a different time frame that we get back to you. So if the position just went up, I'm most likely not going to be calling you that day. I'm going to give it some time for candidates to apply.
Thank you.
We also have a general recruiting number that applicants can call as well. And if you called our main office number, our receptionist would absolutely give you our emails or even connect you with our phone number.
Same thing here. We have a contact right on the application that you can email us right through there. And immediately once your application has gone through, you'll get a response back from our recruiters.
And similar as well, we also have a name on our website you can call for HR. And you can also, I'm on LinkedIn. Most people in HR are going to be on LinkedIn. I encourage you to research, a company that you're looking for. If you're looking for an IT position, research an IT employee of that company and see if there's a link you have with that person and try to connect.
One other thing I think makes a difference too in follow-up time is the number of positions we're recruiting for a specific field. For example, if we have a customer service class with 30 openings, we're going to talk to a lot more candidates than a very specific IT position with a very specific skill set where there may be 5 or 6 of them in the Rochester area. So that makes a big difference too in time frame and how quickly you hear back as well.
So let's follow that vein a little bit. We talked about what what the qualities you look for in prospective candidates. And so, I know you're here today and you all have tables here today. So what are you looking for today is in regards to the job seekers that you'll be meeting today, and regarding maybe their attire, their body language, the first impression. What is something that's going to maybe set someone apart from the other candidates that you speak to today?
Sorry. I think one thing is definitely being dressed professionally, making eye contact, and being respectful to realizing that today there are over 1,200 applicants walking through. We don't have time to do lengthy discussions at a job fair. We do everything electronically, and we encourage you to go out and look at our jobs. So you're not going to get the one-on-one approach at a job fair of this caliber. It is going to be more of a here's how to get our information.
We look for, I have two recruiters upstairs, and what we're looking for is a connection. If you're coming up to the table, definitely dress professionally, but just that quick connection, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're looking for, and then we can offer suggestions and what we're looking for in our company. That is the biggest thing I would say. Be friendly, have a smile on your face, be polite, but we want to hear from you. Like I said before, we're looking for a diverse group, and we're looking for all ages, all backgrounds, because that's what's going to keep our wireless industry going, and it's a very fast-paced industry. So that's what we're looking for when you come up to the table.
And I would say we're trying to go beyond just the first impression. Obviously, everyone's going to make a first impression, hopefully a good one, but we really want to know more about you and what you're looking for, what your strengths are, and does your skill set meet our requirements? For us, that's key. We have certain requirements for every job. If you don't meet those requirements, we can't hire you, period. Because we're a federal contractor, we have additional regulations we need to follow, and that's why the requirements are so critical. So we're really just looking to see, number one, if you're a good match and if you sincerely have an interest.
The only additional thing that I would say is that be really self-aware when you go to a table. Know what you are looking for and what specific skills you have to offer that specific company, who you're speaking with. A lot of times I'll have people come up to the booth and just kind of expect me to give them a presentation or speak to them about our company, which is great. That is why I'm here. But also I'm really looking for somebody who is, even if you don't know about the company, that's okay. But just ask those questions. Be proactive in starting the conversation. That really shows well.
Great, thank you. Any questions so far? Anybody else to follow up? Okay, just check. Okay. So what is your primary resource for your organization as you find talent? I mean, is it advertising, recruiting, employee referral, events like this? For you, what have you found works more effective for you?
For us, it really seems when we run the reports and when we do the numbers that it's employee referral. And I don't know if it's because most people will just say, I think people hear about our company in several different ways. But the number one thing that they'll put down in their application is through that personal connection that they have with our company. But also we are trying many different areas to recruit, not just the traditional recruiting days or job fairs, but also we are involved in different community events and giving back to the community in different ways. And that has been really resourceful as well. So mainly employee referrals though for us.
Our primary source is also employee referrals, but having said that, other sources are critical too. We couldn't do it just with referrals. And Rochester Works has certainly been very helpful to us this past year. We hired a number of people through programs for Rochester Works. Also job fairs such as these. We almost always are placing candidates from job fairs. But we do have an employee referral program because we have great benefits. We're best places to work in collections. I think the culture at Conserve, there's a lot of happy employees, and so they tend to talk about their job in a positive way, and so we get a lot of excellent referrals as well.
I think employee referrals are very important too. We try to teach everyone in our company to have a talent mindset. We're a very small group in our company, and we can't be the only ones out there looking for talent. So we actually supply all employees with cards that they can take out and give to people that they find who might be a good fit in our company. We do a lot of passive searching on LinkedIn, as well as advertising all of our jobs on LinkedIn in very specific groups. I know I've found there's a lot of different employee groups and people looking for jobs on LinkedIn, so I try to make sure all of our jobs get out there. We post everything on our website. We don't find that the older methods of like Career Builder and Monster, we don't use those. They're very costly, and the return is not what we were looking for. We also post all of our jobs with Rochester Works and the government agencies. But I would say primarily, LinkedIn, our own website, and then employee referrals.
Ours is a little bit the same. We have our big website, so We definitely go through there. That's our biggest advertisement. The other thing that we look at, we've started to look more at Indeed.com and looking at resumes that are on Indeed.com and employee referrals, just like every lady said on this panel, is that is the number one thing. Because if you have someone great that's working in our company, chances are you're going to know somebody great too who wants to come in and work for us. And the return on investment is huge. So that is definitely one of our number one ways to find employees.
I'd just like to make a quick comment on Indeed.com. Indeed pulls from every other website out there on their own. So I always recommend verifying the job is still on the company's website when
Yes.
you see something on Indeed, because people will get frustrated because they've seen where it looks very recent on Indeed, but it may be something we pulled down 2 months ago that somehow they found through another website. So I always encourage you to verify something that's on Indeed.
You good? How are we doing? Yeah? I'll get a couple questions. So, Scott, I'm going to come with you just so we can hear, because we're videotaping it. So if you just want to answer the question for me, please.
Sure. Quick one for April. You mentioned passive searching on LinkedIn. Can you delve into that in some detail? How do you use LinkedIn? What kind of inquiries do you use, queries do you use? How would you recommend a profile be structured to be most attractive to you?
Typically what I do is I'll search for keywords. So if people have key titles or if there's a key skill set that I'm looking for, I use the passive searching a lot more for the more unique or the more professional jobs that have certain requirements or skill sets. And then I will send in-mails, and my in-mails will say, you know, because they're to people who are working or not, you know, if you're not interested, do you know anyone who is? So I encourage you, even if you're not interested, to reply to me. Because you never know in the future. You may be looking or may know somebody, you know. So I send out a lot of in-mails. Not always do I get responses, but I try to word them as, like I said, that I'm looking, you know, you seem to have the skills that fit, but if you're not looking, do you know someone who might be?
Any of the other questions for any other ladies? Do you have anything different that you would suggest? We're good? Another question here. Was it you, Ken?
Yes. Actually, my question was along the lines of the last gentleman.
Okay.
Is there something in a profile that would make yourself stand out? Is there a tagline or a phrase? I see different ones saying looking for opportunity or in transition. How does that factor in?
I don't necessarily look at that as much. I realize, you know, everybody's always going to be open if the right opportunity comes along, so we all realize that. I think the biggest thing is just to make sure that your profile is complete and that you have a professional picture on LinkedIn if you have a picture. Some of the pictures out there, it's not Facebook. Make sure that your picture, if you have it out there, does present yourself in a professional manner. But making sure that you have skill sets listed if there are very specialized skills, or you can choose quite a few skills on the profile. So making sure they're all on there so that it does pick up if we do a search.
Any other comments from the panel? Any questions for anybody out here? Okay. Michelle? Thanks, Michelle.
I have a question as it relates to applying online, and how do your companies source the resumes? A lot of times I hear that it's based on the content of the resume, how many words are picked up on the resume, could be salary requirement. A lot of times if you're not within that ballpark, which you may not know what that ballpark is on salary requirement, I've been told that it just goes right to a no pile. So how do your companies handle that, and is there other ways besides the online, maybe reaching out, and LinkedIn is a better source of touching base with somebody?
For us, with like a customer service representative or specialist position, as an example, what we're looking for is customer service experience. So key phrases that tie back into customer experience, that's going to be pulled first. We don't really look too much at the salary. We do look for degrees, but we don't. That's not necessarily the reason why we would pull it out. But we do look for, if it's a specific, like she was, April was saying around like Lincoln, is that you have the transferable skills that we're looking for in the job rec, and that's how it's pulled out of the system. I don't know what anybody else has.
I would agree along the same lines. When we are screening our applicants and looking through applications, it's really individualized based on the position that we're talking about, on what we're going to look for in the applications and the resumes. But it's a number of things. It's the experience, the job history, but also, so in addition to experience, what your experience has been, what the job history has been. Have you jumped from job to job? Have you had gaps in your employment? If you did have gaps in your employment, were you doing something during that time? So those are some of the things that we really look for.
And I would say before you even apply, once you've read the job description, look at your resume and make sure it's geared toward the job. If you're missing some skills that are listed on the job description, then add them in. It also depends on the job we're looking for. If we're looking for a call center position where we have multiple openings, we're going to invite a lot more people in to talk to them and be broader in our search. If we're looking for a specific finance position or IT, etc., we're looking for, and I'll tell you right now, when we ask questions on the application, we're gearing them for the job. So if we ask, do you have certain software skills or financial experience, that's important to the job. It doesn't necessarily mean a no, but that is part of how we're evaluating the candidates. And in addition to that, we're looking at the resume. So if you indicate you have a certain financial experience or a software package, and then we look at your resume and we don't see it anywhere, we might pass you on. And salary, just to speak to that, we often don't ask salary too often up front, but when we do have ranges in mind. If you are well above the range, then yes, frankly, we will move on. If you're close to the range, we realize that you don't want to undersell yourself, but you might be more flexible, so we wouldn't necessarily knock you out.
And I would agree with Jean. I think, as far as salary goes, if you're $50,000 more than we have the budget to, we don't want to insult you by calling you either. But if you're within the range, we realize that it's a total compensation package overall, not just the dollar amount. So we will still look at you. We don't actually have a system that automatically will apply you to jobs that you haven't applied for. So you do with Excelis have to go in and apply for each job that you're interested in. Not to say that we couldn't call you in the future if you've applied and we remember you from a similar position. We do look at people who've applied for similar positions. But being proactive and applying yourself for every job, we do have specific questions, as Jean said, that are geared more towards that job to see if you have the requirements that we're looking for or if you're willing to work the hours of that position. So it's a combination of things, but we don't just automatically rule people out in a no pile. We actually look at every single resume that comes through the door.
Just to add to that, how about industry specific? For example, I came from an industry which was construction, rental, environmental services, but I was a manager, and I've been a manager for 20 years. So I've got industry transferable skills that I could go into manufacturing, communications, business services. And are you looking at those resumes in a broader spectrum to look at those candidates that come in that do have those skills but may not have come from your industry originally?
I guess I'll start with that. I think it depends on how you word your own resume. If you have your resume geared where it's nothing but you just said construction, construction terms and very specific things to that industry, it's going to be harder to see your transferable skills. Whereas if you take your resume and you do your general skills under what you did, then it's going to be a lot easier to see the transferable skills.
Anything else from the panel on that one?
That was perfect.
I have a question on that. What we encourage is that if we know that you're looking at the resumes, and we always encourage a cover letter, and I'm so excited that you talked about thank you letters, that means I'm credible on that one. But the other thing that we talk about is if there really is a question that might be raised in the resume, that they may address it in a cover letter. For example, if they think there really is a salary issue, or if they think they really are transitioning to a new industry. Is that something that you found has been helpful if you've been able to get a cover letter and maybe go back and maybe answer the question. Is that something that in your realm you found has been helpful?
Yes. Cover letters are absolutely helpful. It gives you a greater opportunity to explain your resume more in detail and show kind of a part of yourself more than just your resume before a recruiter or an employer even gets to meet you. So yes, the cover letter is valuable, and that is where maybe you could explain those transferable skills too, and why you're looking to change industries and what you could have to offer this new industry that you're trying to transition into.
I would agree with everything she said also. Is it gives you a chance to even just sell yourself. So even when you're, a resume is a piece of paper and it's got all your skills on you, but a cover letter can sell who you are and what you're going to bring to the table in the company that you're going to work for.
This isn't necessarily regards to the cover letter, but just something that I heard somebody say about gaps in employment. The answer, I did nothing, is never the appropriate answer for when you had a gap in employment. You've always done something, even if it's, caring for children or volunteering or job searching or attending workshops and seminars. I think, letting us know that you're not just, sitting home and not doing anything proactively to help yourself in your job search. We realize the job market right now. We realize people have gaps in employment just to the job market. But making sure you sell yourself and what you've been doing proactively or positively, as opposed to just, I didn't do anything.
Any questions from the audience? Oh, here we go. I'll come. Oh, by the way, sweet lady, see me afterwards. Somebody sent me a job for you. You just love it.
Hi, I'm looking to relocate, and I'm wondering, as I send my resume out and try and make the people connections, is it better to, some of the applications ask for your address, and if I'm relocating to Texas or Missouri or wherever, and I have a Rochester address, does it matter where my address is if I'm applying for a position and I state I'm willing to relocate?
So for Verizon Wireless, on our website, you can sort wherever you want to go. And if you are definitely 100% more marketable in our industry, if you are mobile. So you can move very quickly if you're somebody that wants to travel or change jobs or, keep taking lateral moves or upward moves. When you apply on the application, it'll ask you, are you mobile? And then there's a spot in there that you can say where you are looking to go.
I know personally, I reach out to candidates who don't have local addresses, and I'll say, before I release them to a manager, before we schedule anything, are you willing to relocate, on your own if it's a position that doesn't have relocation assistance? So I think stating it up front is good, and I don't think it matters if you have a Rochester address. I always wonder a little bit when a resume doesn't have an address on it, so it makes me question it, but I think, having your address and being up front that you're willing to relocate is fine.
I was just going to say the same thing about relocation. It's when you are applying to a position, for example, in Rochester, we're assuming that when you applied, you paid attention that it's in Rochester. And I would often will double check if there's interest in your resume and your application online. We'll probably shoot you an email just to make sure the relocation piece is acceptable before we'd bring you in for an interview. But other than that, and if you've already cleared that up in a cover letter or on your resume, then we're all set.
I would echo the same. If you're looking to relocate, definitely include your address, even if it's here in Rochester now. The other thing is depending on the position, might take into account if the employer is going to look at somebody who's relocating. And it's a very specialized position. They might be looking anywhere to find the right candidate, but if it's something that they hire for often and it's kind of an entry-level position, they might not be as apt to have somebody move across the country just because it might not be worth their effort to move across the country for an entry-level position. So yes, I think definitely include your address, and it's definitely a possibility.
Any other questions as we're going through? Okay. So what some of the questions we've gotten from customers are, what are the changes that you've seen in your industry? What are the top 2 or 3 changes you've seen? And how does that impact, going forward for you, the potential employees and candidates that you're looking at? So what's changed in your particular area?
I can start with that one. In our industry, there's constantly changes. Changes in how service is delivered and changes in the industry in general. So policies that come down from the state. We are a nonprofit organization that's overseen by the state organization called the Office for Peoples with Developmental Disabilities. So how that affects the candidates we look for is we really look for people who are adaptable and flexible and who are able to change, because one of the biggest or most important things to us is that our employees are able to change and be flexible with changes so that we can continue to provide the highest quality of support to the people we support, independent of those changes.
We're in the insurance industry, so one of our biggest changes is probably pretty obvious. With Obamacare, there are a lot of unknowns in the insurance industry and what the market's going to look like. So we're looking for employees that are adaptable and can bring some creativity and realize that change is inevitable right now in our industry because no one knows what these changes are going to bring. I mean, we could be in retail stores at some point. Nobody knows. So I think it's important to have an open mind in our industry especially.
In our industry, we have to follow lots of laws and regulations, which are, again, constantly changing. And then technology for all of us, it's changing all the time. That impacts our employees and our applicants and what we're looking for. We need to make sure that our employees know the new laws and regulations or learn the new technology. So there's always ongoing training. That willingness to learn is important to us for both our employees and our applicants.
I would ditto everything that they said. Change energizes us. So the number one thing that I can tell you in our industry is, I'm sure you've seen 1,000 commercials between Verizon Wireless and other carriers. Everything is changing, and just like it is with insurance, you're competing out there. So when we look for people to hire, we're looking for people who are going to come with new innovative ideas to keep our company successful. So the one thing I can say that you would get from our company is that every day would be a different day. And there wouldn't be a same day. You would have something new that you would learn. I guarantee in the half an hour that I'll be here that something will be changed by the time I get back to my office. So that would be the one thing I could tell about our company is it's always changing. Learn technology, try iPads, try iPhones, look into what the industry all over in all departments, because everything is going online. So to be successful in any company, especially any of us on here, you're going to have to know somewhat of that transferable skill.
Thank you. And this is kind of a leading question to that, because we've talked about how the industry has changed. So maybe what is some advice you can give the different types, so you have such a diverse population out there in the job market. So people such as, our traditionalists, our baby boomers, our Gen Xers, our Gen Ys, what would you say to them as they're approaching you for positions so that they can be successful?
It's funny, that was one of the things we were discussing as we were all waiting up here. I think a couple of things. I think the younger generations, especially those coming out of college, they need to have some more realistic expectations about the job market right now and realize unless you've chosen a very specialized industry, if you're in IT or medical or something, then you can come out and you're probably going to get a higher salary. But the more traditional jobs that you're coming out and going into, you're going to have to put some dues in, and you're going to have to accept a more entry-level position and realize that, just because you go into customer service doesn't mean you can't grow into another role. But the job market is such out there that there are there's a large population of professionals out there who have the experience that you're competing against. So I think having more realistic expectations, for the older generations, I think something that's going to make your resume stand out is don't put your experience 30 years back. 10 years back on a resume is sufficient. And the stuff that you did 30 years ago isn't necessarily relevant now. So I think making your resume, look like all of the other resumes is important.
Thank you. Betsy, do you have anything different to add?
Agree.
I didn't even prep you or pay you, and it goes right in line with what you said. Okay.
We get a lot of the questions we get around. So for each one of you, what does the word overqualified mean to you? We get that a lot. They're telling me I'm overqualified. So in your mind, if somebody's overqualified, what might that look like to you?
That's a tough one.
Right.
Go ahead. You got it.
I was just going to say that if I saw a resume and they looked, maybe it's an entry-level position, they have management experience, and to me I'm looking to see, what's the objective say then, or what does their cover letter say? If they state in there that they're looking for management and yet they're applying for entry-level, then I might discount them because the interest level is not there. However, if they're applying to an entry-level position and they have the skill set and I feel there's a genuine interest, I don't care. I know that the market's tough, and in our company, 70% of our positions, our promotions, are filled internally. So I know there's room to grow. So we do get, especially when the economy, slowed down, we had a lot of people that were, quote unquote, probably overqualified, bank managers, et cetera, starting in entry-level jobs, but with the opportunity to grow.
That's the same here for us. Overqualified, you said it exactly the way I would have said it, is that, sometimes we look at applications and we get a little concerned, like if it's somebody that maybe has been making 6 figures in a pharmaceutical sales position and now wants to get into Verizon Wireless. But we look at the bigger picture. So, the economy and the way that Rochester is going, we look at the bigger picture to see, is this somebody that's going to move in this company and want to keep growing and keep going? So you may be in an entry-level position for 9 months, but can keep moving forward. So I would agree with everything you said.
For us, too, one thing that I just wanted to add is it could be, if you're applying for a credentialed position or a position that requires a credentialing, and your credentialing is much higher than what you're applying for. So, for example, if a doctor is applying for a position like a direct support role, so somebody who is a medical doctor but is applying for a role that's very entry level, that would kind of raise a flag for us. That might be like, well, why would someone, especially the industry that the person's from, too, if that industry, so nursing, for example, if a registered nurse is applying for, which has happened, a direct support role with us, which is possible, maybe they're looking for additional work in addition to being a registered nurse somewhere. We would want to just kind of feel out why someone who, especially in that field where there is a lot of job opportunities, why are they applying for something that's not within their credential level?
I agree with everything the panel said. I think one of the key differentiators, too, is what kind of position are you applying for. I know personally in our call center we have all different skill sets. We have lawyers, we have people, so there's a lot of different skill sets, and in our call center specifically, they are more soft skills that we're looking for. You don't need a specific skill set. However, in an IT position, if you've been a CIO and you're applying for help desk, that's something where we might kind of question, why are you looking for such a different level than you've been at? So I think it's telling your story, and that's where a cover letter can come in. And just knowing, too, if you're in a market currently that we know there's a lot of jobs out there for that specific skill set, especially at your level and you're applying for a much lower level position, you want to tell your story somehow to us. Again, we get thousands of applicants every day, so it's something just to tell us why you're looking.
Any questions? I got some of it.
Yeah, Ms. Dixon, I'm good.
Yeah, you had mentioned, and I forgot which lady mentioned about dates in your resume. Don't go past a certain time frame. What if and personally it impacts me. What if 30 years ago you have an entry for activities or skill sets which are relevant to the job? Do you still exclude them, or can you include them?
My personal recommendation to people on that is to list your 10 years of employment. And then if there are other skill sets or other jobs you feel are relevant, just put other relevant work history and list it under there without the dates. That's how I recommend it.
And the other thing that I guess I would ask you, if I'm correct in or not, is my suggestion always is that when you do list something exactly the way you said, make sure you still have that current skill set. Because if you haven't used it in 30 years, then that's the first thing they're going to ask you. Okay, is okay, that's great, but if you haven't done it in 30 years, you're going to be up against people that have done it. So it's more. It actually comes back to what you talked about in the beginning, April, and that's that you have to have realistic expectations. These are wonderful women, but they are business women. They are making business decisions. And so they're doing that for the viability of their companies, and we have to respect that and acknowledge that when we're going to them or any of the companies that are here today. Okay? If you could share with us a little bit around, I know you said tell your story, which I love. So as you're interviewing people, what impact does it make on the interview for you and your viability to really maybe bring that candidate, through the process when they can effectively communicate to you their story, and what about what in their story really resonates with you? So could you give me some information on that? It's not on the list, so I threw it in.
One thing I think when you're talking to someone on the phone is how you come across. Someone who is rude to me on the phone during a phone interview, or someone who argues with me about a question, they're not top on my list to bring in because that's not the soft skill sets we're looking to move forward in our company. So I think it's great to tell me your story, but make sure you're answering my questions as well, and realize that I'm not out to exclude you. If I'm taking the time out of my day to call you, it's hopefully you're the perfect candidate, and I don't have to make any more telephone calls for that position. So realize that we're out to help you. We're not calling to just criticize. We're calling to get more information and to talk to you. If it's not a great time to talk, I always ask people, please tell me. If you're in an opportunity that you really can't talk, or the kids are running around, or you're out in traffic, or you're running. I've had people do phone screens while they're running. Let me know, and we can schedule another time. I realize I've called you out of the blue, so it's perfectly acceptable to say, this isn't a great time. Can I make an appointment to call you back?
The other piece is know what you applied for, because a lot of the times you're not really sure what you applied for, and then it starts the interview off in a very awkward moment of trying to explain, well, you applied for this position, and walking you through. So just know what you applied for, and then share. Don't go overly and share everything about yourself, but you want to give some of the top things about yourself on the interview.
That's what I was going to say as well. When sharing your story, just be aware of what you're sharing. We do want to know who you are and have that relational connection with you, but sometimes there is too much information as well, and that could be something that maybe you would share on the job then, so that could be a flag for us if you're sharing too much information just on a phone call.
Would you ask what my story was? And I'm asking this because last week I went on an interview and I was not asked any questions. And what was talked about was the person that was supposedly interviewing me was telling me about her company and the way things are done there. And I never got any direct questions. And I didn't get the position, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should have divulged information about myself and talked about me or what I wanted to do for the company. So the way you're looking, that doesn't sound as the norm.
No, it doesn't sound like an interview is supposed to be a dialogue back and forth. So an interview, generally, we have, for each position that we hire for, we have specific questions that we would ask every candidate so that it's, measurable, and that all of our interviewers are asking the same questions so that it's consistent across the board. Then there might be additional questions that we could ask to each person, but we always would have questions and opportunity because it's a conversation. We want to get to know you, and you, probably want to get to know us as a company and to see if it's the right fit for you as well. So that doesn't seem typical. Typically, it would be a conversation. So you should have opportunity to share about yourself and to answer some questions, and you should have opportunity to ask questions as well.
True, which I did. Do you rely on behavioral questions?
I know we do.
You do?
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't want to work for a company who didn't ask me any questions. That's not a typical interview. One of the first questions I always ask, and one of the first I try to tell my managers to ask is, have you tell me how you think your skills relate to the position. So, be prepared. Behavioral interviewing is something that we use a lot. Some people are just really good at answering the standard interview questions and they can buzz through it. But behavioral interviewing really delves down into how you actually do your work and how you perform on the job. It's hard to prepare for behavioral interviewing. But I always say, too, an interview is a two-way street. It's not just for us to decide if you are the best candidate for us. It's for you to decide if we're a good company for you, too. I always encourage you, if you're not sure about a company, take the interview, at least the first one. You never know how you're going to feel after that, but it's an opportunity for you to explore the company as well.
Can you explain more what behavioral interviewing is?
It just asks questions more about your behavior. So give examples of when you've done this, or tell us how you've handled a situation like this in the past. So it just delves more into your actual behavior on the job and giving concrete examples, as opposed to the cookie cutter answers of what's your perfect day, that sort of thing.
Right. So behavioral interview is drawing on your past experience and providing an example. And I would also like to say, at an interview, agree completely. We all, I think, ask certain prescribed questions, preset for every candidate. In addition to that, at the end of the interview, if you haven't, make sure you tell the person that's interviewing you, if it's true, let them know you're interested in the job. Don't walk out without saying, this sounds like a good fit. Maybe explain, even if you're not asked, why you feel it's a good fit and that you'd be an asset to the company and that you want the job. Because sometimes, once in a while, that really does make a difference.
We always call it the why me question at the end. So if someone doesn't ask, give them the why me. The other thing I would say, just for practice, and I tell this to anybody that I'm prepping for any interviews, is Google behavioral interview questions. And every day, and even myself in any role that I'm moving on to, I practice on the way to work and on the way home. I practice one question. So I read the question, and on the way to work, I'm the one that is talking in the car next to you. That's how I practice. So that would be the best advice that I give you, is practice those questions. You're going to start to see yourself get really good at them, real natural at them, and then it's not going to be as nerve-wracking when you get into an interview.
Thank you. There's a question.
Yes. If you have a very good phone interview and very good follow-up interviews, and you get great feedback during the interview about how things are going, and then ultimately you don't get the position, is there an appropriate way to follow up and ask, what was the reason that it didn't go to the finality of getting the position?
I know we try to encourage our managers to reach out to anyone who's especially made it to the last level, when you make it to the final round. It's a tough job market right now. One conversation I have a lot with candidates is, just because you're minimally qualified for the job does not necessarily mean that you were the most qualified for the job. Out of 200 applicants, we have to find the one person that we feel is the perfect match. So I think especially when you said you've had good feedback and you've gone to final round, it's great to ask the question. If you don't get the feedback, I think it's appropriate to say, I'm disappointed. However, I would appreciate feedback. I'm very interested in working in your company in the future. If you do ask for follow-up, make sure it's professional and that you're not showing that you're really upset or you're angry that you didn't get it, because you never know, something could change and there could be another position next week that comes through that somebody may call you for, especially if you were one of the top candidates.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It could be too, oftentimes for us, we do a lot of internal promotions, as I know Jean said as well. So there could have been, an internal candidate who emerged, and so asking that follow-up is really important and being professional about it, because there could be then, a different position that opens up that you might be a fit for and the company could come back, or they could be expanding in that position, the same position you were applying for before, they're adding another position like that. So just maintain that relationship and don't burn any bridges.
Okay, you got time for one more?
A question about computer skills at a professional level. I tend to think of them as just a given, but to get through those early screens, you need to put something on about, basic Word, Office, Excel, PowerPoint skills.
I know if it's a requirement of the job, we'll ask it. I agree with you. I think at certain professional levels, it's an assumed. If there's a specific software or something that's not as common, we'll ask about it. But I think for more of the professional level positions, Word, Excel, PowerPoint is kind of an assumed if you're applying for the position.
So we actually usually, a lot of our positions do require certain skills, either Excel or Microsoft Word or combination. Even our entry-level call center positions, we're not necessarily looking for an expert by any means, but we want to know you've touched it. We want to know that you know what it is. And for, of course, our management positions, yes, it's important, but maybe we do want intermediate Excel experience. We'll ask that question as part of the online application. I think it never hurts to put any software you've used on your resume, databases, and for HR, applicant tracking software you've used, or what have you. If obviously you're a programmer, the languages, but it never hurts.
I do want to thank you for spending time with us today and helping everyone here get off to a good start. As I said, we brought in the experts. I know you probably didn't have a great interview, and I understand, but as we tell you a lot, not everybody is a great interviewer. But we brought in some who we feel are top people to talk to you today to give you a really realistic perspective of what's happening here in this area. And I think that's what I would hope that you would engage in. These are the people that are going to be potential hiring managers for you. These are the people in my mind that you should be listening to and aligning to, because this is these are the ones that have the jobs you hear now. I do again thank you so much for sharing with our customers and our clients today. They all have booths up there. Go and visit them, and I think hopefully a little bit of perspective has been changed for some of you. Every single one of you really has a very involvement with the people that come in and apply to your positions and your jobs, and which makes them great places to work. So thank you very, very much for today. Thank you.